Last week we looked at key verses. We're not going to go over those again, but we have that paper in the back. But we looked at the key verses of Galatians, and we looked at some of the key words of Galatians. And so those are a part of where we've been and what we've done. Now let's talk about the simple outline. I have a simple outline for you. First of all, there's a personal section. There's a doctrinal section of Galatians. And there's the practical side of Galatians. So we're going to look at the personal side, the doctrinal side. We learn so much about Paul because he is so personal in this and tells us so much of his background and history. Then we cover so much doctrine, and then there's a practical side. Now the personal side I call the preacher of justification. Paul is the preacher who believes that we are justified by faith. And so the first and second chapter is pretty much his preaching and defending himself. The doctrinal portion, I believe, is the principles of justification. The principles. What are the principles of our being justified? What is the doctrine that he has taught and believes and wants them to hold on to? And then finally, the practical application is the privileges of justification. What happens to those of us who have been justified? So we kind of break them up into two chapters. 1 and 2 is the first. The third and the fourth chapter is the second. And the fifth and the sixth chapter make up the third area. All right? So let's begin where we left off. We're under the preacher of justification and chastening. All right? We're being chastened. So the apostolic chastening goes from verses 1 through 9. First of all, I say that in verses 6 through 9, this is where the letter begins. Okay, so let's look at that. Let's look at Galatians 1. 6 through 9 reads this. I am amazed that you are so quickly deserting him who called you by the grace of Christ for a different gospel, which is really not another, only there are some who are disturbing you and want to distort the gospel of Christ. But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to what we have preached to you, he is to be accursed. As we have said before, so I say again now, if any man is preaching to you a gospel contrary to what you received, he is to be accursed. Anybody want to say chastened? Okay, you are being set straight here. So let's look at some of these words. In verse 6, he says, I am amazed. I am amazed. The Greek word for amazed means to marvel, to wonder, to have your breath taken away. Now, in quotations, I've written, to be blown away. That's kind of how we'd say it today. Okay, I'm going to give you kind of a modern vernacular. I am absolutely blown away. Now, usually, to marvel and to wonder is about something very good. You marvel at a statue or a building or some feat that has happened. I am blown away by how beautiful this is. I am blown away by how powerful this is. I am blown away by how deep that is. I am absolutely just marveled and wonder at what has happened. But there's such a juxtaposition of this word. I am amazed at how quickly you deserted Jesus. Do you feel that tension there that I am blown away by the Washington Monument? I can't imagine Mount Rushmore. I can't believe the Parthenon. I am that blown away by how quickly you gave up and ran away. Ouch. Boy, slap my face now. I am absolutely amazed that you are so quickly deserting. So when we say quickly there, the word is to hastily run. It's to run in a panic without purpose or direction is how we would put it today. It's like somebody said boo and they ran. Rather than holding firm to the gospel, they ran and ran. Well, they've got chickens with their heads cut off, we might say today. Without any purpose or direction, you deserted. You quickly. The word desert there is an amazing word. Look at the word, okay? Let's do a little Greek study here. It's metatithemai. Metatithemai has at its roots the words metanu. And metanu is the Greek word for repent. Now what does repent mean? Yeah, in its strictest form, metanu means about face. you change your mind, and you change your direction. A soldier who's still marching forward and turns his body is going to stumble over his own feet, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be a mental decision that I'm going to take that foot and I'm going to pivot and I'm going to turn so that I don't trip over my own feet. There's got to be a mental decision that I will turn and then the body follows. That is metanoia. And so to repent is to change my mind and to change my direction. You see, it's a two-part situation. It's not, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm going to do it again. No, I didn't repent. You see, I felt guilty, but I didn't repent, because repent is to change the mind and then to change the direction.
Right.
And so the about face has to take place. Well, so here these guys have been going with Jesus, and he basically said, y'all just did an about face on Jesus. The word desert there is the root of repent. How could you run willy-nilly the other direction away from Jesus?
Amen.
What? Again, a double slap. What a harsh phrase to use. That you quickly about-faced him who called you by the grace of Christ for a different gospel. Now, the word here, if we go on and says, who called you. The one who called you is the word kaleo, which is the root of ecclesia. Ecclesia means the called, and that's the Greek word for church, right? Ecclesia means church. So he's going to do a little play on words on us here. Let's read the verse. I am amazed that you are so quickly deserting him who called you, the church, by the grace of Christ for a different gospel. Okay? So he's saying God called you into the church, but remember he just established that no man has sent him, but Jesus did. He said, y'all are the called, but I'm the sent. I'm the sent. And so he's making a play on this call and sent. That you're the called. Who do you think you are telling me that I'm not preaching a good gospel? You've been called to Jesus. I was not only called, but I was sent by Jesus. Again, a slap on the hand here. Who do you think you are? And so, the next phrase that we look at is different. A different gospel. The word there is heteros. What do we know about heteros? Heterosexual. It's heterosexual, okay? And so the heterosexual is a different of the same kind. Different of the same type. So heterosexual means humans that choose humans, but it's different humans. It's the male and the female. Homosexual means of the same, but the same type. Okay? So heteros means different of the same type. It's kind of like these. Guys, all these are bananas. Every one of those is a banana. But they're different. You see, this is the different of the same type. These are all bananas. And so you have chosen a different of the same type. These are all berries, right? Different but same type. Heteros, different but the same type. But then he corrects himself or goes a step farther. He says, I'm amazed that you're so quickly deserting him who called you the grace of Christ for a different gospel. Okay? He says, which is really not another. Now, why does he say not another? Because he's making a point. Okay? The word here is allos, which means it's a different type. It's not the same type. What you're following is not even close to the gospel. If I were to say, how close are bananas and berries to one another? They're both fruit, but they're radically different. All right? And that's how different your gospel is from the real gospel. Okay? You might call it good news, but it ain't close to good news. He said, in fact, let's go a step further then. Okay? So think about, he's got a target, and he says, you've chosen a different gospel. He says, wait, it's not even like the gospel. And then he takes it a step farther in verse 7 and says, which are not really another. Only there are some who are disturbing you and want to distort the gospel of Christ. So what you have is not even close to what we have. So he says it's a different gospel. No, it's a wholly different gospel. It's not even close to the gospel, okay? I mean, he just keeps walking farther and farther from the center. And he says here, that the gospel means good news. This is not even good news compared to my good news.
No.
Not even compared to it.
Yeah.
Now remember, has he got a New Testament? No, he's not carrying a New Testament with him, is he? Paul.
No.
Paul is not carrying a New Testament. What's he got? He's got the Torah. He's got the law. He's got the book. Okay. And so look at Isaiah 43:11. Isaiah 43:11. Isaiah 43:11. I, even I am. So you got the I and you got the I am. I, even I am the Lord, and there is no Savior besides me.
That's hot.
You see, where's the good news come from? The good news comes from the one God who is the Savior, and there is no other. Paul is referring back to the fact that how many gospels do you think there are, dude? And dudettes? I mean, for Pete's sake. How many do you really think are happening here? There's only so many, and it's the one God, okay? So, go back to Galatians. Go back there with me. Verse 7 we're still in. It says, which is really not another, only there are some who are disturbing you. Disturbing there is a poor word. It's a bad choice. The word is tarasso. It means stirring up mayhem and trouble. These people are not just saying, well, I'd like to bother you for a minute, may I? I'm with the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh.
You know, I'm with the Latter-day Saints. No, you're not going to bother me for a minute. Go away. So, what we're saying is, these people are stirring up trouble, Paul says. Disturbing does not come close to what is actually used in the Greek here. It's to stir up some trouble. And it says, and want to distort. When I was doing a word study on this particular verse, I was blown away by the word want. Because the word want there literally means to take your pleasure or enjoyment. They want to take the joy of the gospel away from you. They want to take from you the pleasure of being saved. They want to put you back under the law. They want to put you back under the rules. Don't you understand that the good news is that there's pleasure and enjoyment? They are taking away. So the want there, they're enjoying hurting you here. They're enjoying working you up and disturbing you. And the word distorting the gospel means to turn or pervert. Look at that metastrepho. That's the root word metanu, which is repent again. So in one verse he says, repenting, they've repented, and you've repented from the gospel, and he said, and these people are the people who turned you around. These are the people.
It says pervert.
Yeah, pervert. It says these are the guys who turned you around. It's the same root word of repent. They've turned you. They've distorted the gospel of Christ, okay? We might say today it's to turn the truth on its head. They've taken the truth and flipped it upside down with you. And so everything that you believe and everything that you know has been turned on its head. Verse 8 says, but even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to what we have preached to you, he is to be accursed. Now, there's not a lot of difference in what the Greek says and what it says here. To preach means to spread or announce the good news. It says if we preach something contrary, if an angel from heaven in the Greek is angel from heaven. Okay? It's not an angel, it's not a messenger from earth. We know that angel can mean people or spirits. This, he's making the distinction. If even a spiritual being comes down from heaven, don't believe it, don't trust it. All right? Now, this very concept is incredibly Old Testament of testing spirits and watching out. And just because someone says that they're of God, don't always accept that they're of God. Beware of a stranger who comes to your door and tests them, the Old Testament says, because you never know if you'll be entertaining an angel unawares, the New Testament says. So you have to be very careful. Just because someone calls themselves a messenger from God does not mean that they are. Right? And that's why there's an entire sect of Judaism that believes that Abraham did kill Isaac. Because it was an angel that said so when God had told him to go sacrifice sacrifice his son. God gave him the word to do it. Why would I listen to an angel that says don't? And they believe that Isaac was resurrected from the dead. That he was resurrected as a type and a symbol of the Messiah. Now, they don't say that.
Yeah, very good.
They don't say that.
Yeah.
But we Christians take it a step farther. That if he was resurrected from the dead on Mount Moriah, put that in your pipe and smoke it for a while and think about what that means, okay?
Yeah.
Those people are closer to the Messiah than they know, than they even know. And I personally have no trouble believing that. I have no trouble believing that he did sacrifice Isaac because he was a man who trusted and believed what God said.
Yeah.
He was obedient to the end. I have no problem believing it. I'm not going to preach it, I'm not going to teach it, but I have no problem believing that it was. My God can raise anybody from the dead he wants to. And if Abraham follows God right to the death, then okay. The only problem we have with that is, does God really then condone child sacrifice and animal sacrifice? Listen, if you're going to raise them from the dead, how afraid do you have to be of it? Does that make sense? If you're going to raise them from the dead, how afraid of it do you have to be? If I'm going to kill you and I know that you're going to raise from the dead, do I have to worry about the murder situation?
No.
There's not going to be any evidence of the murder, is there?
No. Yeah, that's
See, yeah, there's no evidence of the murder if you would come up and say, I'd like to testify in court about his being, he didn't really kill me because here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of erases the whole child sacrifice, human sacrifice situation, okay? And besides, you really can't slam God for being for child sacrifice
Yeah.
when he was willing to kill his own son.
Thank you. That's the big one.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really point fingers and go, but God wouldn't do that, but we all have a faith that is based upon the fact that he did.
That he did that exactly.
So why would Isaac blow us out of the water?
Yeah.
So we won't go there. But anyway, that built upon that whole concept then, that is good news. The word contrary is actually a partial word. It's a prefix and it's para, like paragraph, paramilitary, parachurch. That means to be beside, to be beside. The paraclete is the comforter who comes beside us, okay? And here's the idea of this contrary, Stand up, okay? Point that way. This is the good news. This is the gospel. This is the truth. I'm next to it, but I'm not quite it.
Sure.
We would say that here contrary almost means the word counterfeit. See, I'm really close to the truth, and I sound like the truth, and I look like the truth, but am I the truth?
Nope.
No, because I'm beside it, I'm not it. You see? Okay, so thanks. And so what this is actually a naval term. It's a term that comes from naval battles when you are at war at sea and you pull your boat up alongside and you try and tip them, you try and ram them from coming up alongside. And so they would have poles and things that they had out in the oars that they rowed. They would take metal poles and jam it into the side of the ship to create holes so that ship would fall down. I come beside you. I'm trying to sink you.
Yeah.
I'm the counterfeit that's close to you, but I will sink you like a rock because I'm not you. I'm beside you. And so contrary has all kinds of concepts to it, that it is beside and yet trying to ground us and trying to be against us, okay? So it can be beside or against. And it's used both ways in the New Testament. The word accursed here, if an angel comes to you, that angel is accursed. If a person comes to you, that person is accursed. And the word there is anathema. Anathema. We use the word anathema still today in English, and I'll let that be an anathema. Oh, to us it means something that's just intolerable and unacceptable. Something that we resist. But it literally means an offering that is set aside for a false god. It's the word votive offering. An anathema is a votive offering that's been offered to another god. We don't have anything to do with those. See, those are offered to false gods.
Right.
So if I had a flock of sheep that were dedicated to Baal, then those sheep would be anathema to me. They would be accursed. Because are they going to be given to the real God? No. They've been set aside for the false God. So I'm coming up alongside you with my false sacrifice, with my false offering. It looks good. It sounds good, but it'll sink you at sea. You see how it all goes together? It's a woven word of tapestry that he's pointing here for. So let's read the verse again with what we know, which is really not another, but what they're doing is some are disturbing you and want to distort the gospel of Christ. But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach to you a gospel that is against that, we have the word we preach to you, he is accursed. What you've heard from these Judaizers is going to sink your boat, but it sounds so close to the truth. It sounds so good. And could we not say the same thing about the Christian church in America?
Yeah.
So close.
The perfect example.
Yeah.
An angel came to Joseph Smith.
Exactly.
In the golden tablets, we have a whole new gospel. They say Jesus. They say the same language we have.
The whole Book of Mormon and the whole concept of Mormonism came from a different angel. Yep.
Yes.
So we have, it has happened, hasn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see, we got time to do it. Verse 10. Verse 10. So he stops from the attack, and now he asks the question. For am I now seeking the favor of men or of God? Or am I striving to please men? If I were still trying to please men, I would not be a bond servant of Christ. Now, this obviously is a response to a complaint that the Judaizers are an accusation. They have come and said, are you believing Paul? You're believing Paul that you don't have to be circumcised? Is that what you're saying? Don't you know that Paul is doing that just to please the Gentiles? You see, he's turned his back on the law. And so now he's just a man pleaser. And being a man pleaser, do you want to be a man pleaser or do you want to be God pleaser? Oh, we want to be God pleasers. And God said be circumcised. See, he's just a big old fat man pleaser is all he's doing. He's bending the gospel so that the Gentiles, he could get more heads on his platter and say, look at all the churches of the Gentiles I've started, they're all going straight to hell because they're not following the law. So this is an accusation, and he addresses that accusation. Now, I find this so interesting. I looked and looked and looked for an answer as to this, and I could not find a real good answer. It says, am I seeking the favor? Now, the Greek says, am I seeking the favor? That's what it says. But guess what? Seeking and favor are the same word. He repeats it twice. Am I seeking the seeking? Basically. And what the word literally means, to seek the confidence of someone. He wants to be on the side of the Gentiles. He wants to make the Gentiles his buddies. He's trying to suck up, is what we might say. He's trying to apple polish the Gentiles. And so he's trying to apple polish the apple polishing of the Gentiles. The only thing that I could find in any of the commentaries was from 1840, from a guy named Alexander McClaren. How do you like that? Huh? Spells it without a big C, but Alexander McClaren in the 1840s said that this tells me that they have accused Paul of doing it to the point where Paul is saying, do you think that I'm seeking favor times 2? Do you think that I'm seeking favor and seeking favor? Do you think I'm trying to get the confidence to the point that I would get the confidence? And he said the reason he believes this is we know that Hebrews spoke in doublets and triplets. Remember how we've discussed that in our classes? How the repetition of the thing gives it power, and then repeating it 3 times gives it, by the word of 2 or 3 witnesses will a testimony be affirmed.
Yes.
And so when God says, verily, verily,
Amen.
that means something to us. He's repeating it, okay? And it leaves favor. He said, I think that Paul is leaning favor to what these people have said and said, they've said it so many times that you actually think I'm apple polishing the apple polishing. That I've really given up the gospel. And I'm pleasing the man to please the man. I'm seeking the confidence to seek the confidence, is what McClaren said, and I went, that fits, that's good, I'll stop looking. That makes sense. You know, nobody else wanted to address it, but at least the guy who addressed it, I thought hit it pretty good. That he's just going to slap him on the left cheek and the right cheek and going, Is that what you think I'm doing? Okay? The word striving here in verse 10, or am I striving to please men? This is almost the opposite of seeking. Seeking is to seek the confidence, to apple polish, to sidle up alongside and say, "Boy, you look good today. How you doing? You're so smart." It's words. It's words. And the word strive is to work or to labor. He said, do you think I'm trying to, with my words, apple polish the Gentiles? Or do you think I'm even getting down in the dirt and digging a ditch for it? I mean, I'm striving to please men. Do you think I'm doing it with my words, or I'm working hard at it? Is that what you think? To me, this is, he's spiraling down deeper and deeper and saying, am I doing it with my words? Do you think I'm doing it with my actions? How far do you think I'll sink? And you'd actually believe that of Paul. You'd believe that of me. He says, or am I still trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a bond servant of Christ.
Amen. And that's all.
Boom, that's it. And the word bond servant, mic drop, exactly, it is a mic drop. And bond servant is just the simplest word for slave in the Greek.
Okay.
But literally there are 3 words for slaves, and this is the simplest. It means a house-made butler. If you watch Downton Abbey, you don't get to go to the first floor, you're in the basement for your whole life. These are the people who are going to polish the shoes but not be able to take them back to the door. They're in the bowels of the earth. This is the simplest, most common slave that has no rights, no power, no reputation whatsoever. All they are is invisible workers that you will never see. That's the word that he uses for her. Good word to put. When he's established how big of an apostle he really is. And then to turn around and say, but all that means I'm just a bondservant. I'm just a slave. Verse 11 says, for I would have you know, brethren, that the gospel which was preached by me is not according to man. The word according means in alignment or agreement with man. My gospel doesn't fit men at all. It doesn't line up with man's ideas, and it doesn't line up with man's theology. So take a deep breath, get a grip, and get over it. Okay? Get over it. This is not what's happening here. Verse 12 is fascinating. For I neither received it from man, nor was I taught it, but I received it through a revelation of Jesus Christ. The word there, the word that is the revelation, it was revealed to me, a revelation of Christ, is the word, what does it say? Look at that word, Greek word. Can you say it out loud? Apocalypsis. What does that sound like? Apocalypse. Yeah, apocalypse, the revelation. The end times. The revelation means the apocalypse. That's where we get the word apocalypse now, and apocalypse zombies, and all kinds of things like that, okay? It is the end times. It's the revelation. It's the unveiling or the revealing. We've said before that the word revelation means to slowly open the curtain on the stage. And as you open it up, you see 2 or 3 actors, and they act. And then it opens up, and there's their parents, and they have something to say. Then you open it up, and there's the chorus and the choir of the Greek theater. And so they literally open the curtain to help set the stage. And as they opened it up, they knew more of what was going on. They understood more. They saw more. 2 people squabbling over something that you can't see. In a Greek theater, they would be squabbling back and forth and fighting. And one person would take a stick and hit the other one on the head like Punch and Judy, you know? And you're going, what is this all about? And then it pulls across, and there's the mother and the father, and they're bickering over their children's marriage or something like that. And suddenly you understood, oh, they're responding to what's happening off stage, but I didn't see it. It wasn't revealed to me.
Hallelujah.
But once the stage opens up, I see that there are the people who are acting and saying their parts. And once the curtain opens, we hear their voices. They begin to speak. And we say, oh. And then the chorus opens up and says, and these are the 2 who are singing because they're going to get married and their parents don't like it. And the Greek chorus begins to tell the story. We saw a little bit, almost through a glass darkly. But there will be a day when it is revealed and the curtain is open and we get to hear the chorus sing. And instead of the chorus singing, these 2 are arguing over their marriage because their parents don't like it, that chorus is going to be singing, glory to God in the highest. Hallelujah to the King of Kings. That's going to be the background of what will be revealed to us in heaven. Amen?
Yes.
And so we read verse 12 says, "For I neither received it from man, nor was I taught it, but I received it." Now look, "I received it" is in italics. It's not in the original. And it says, "For I neither received it from man, nor was I taught it, but through a revelation of Jesus Christ." I like it better that way. I do too. I don't like the italics in there. But of a revelation of Jesus Christ, okay? Through a revelation of Christ. Now you don't understand that this says that it's not so much a revelation from Christ, but it's a revelation of Jesus Christ. You see, I understand the good news because I had a revelation. I had the curtain pulled back and I heard the choir and the chorus and the background of Jesus. I have had the revelation of the Christ. Y'all have just met me.
Right.
You haven't even met the apostles in Jerusalem yet, let alone the Christ. But the Christ was revealed to me. Yes, I didn't see him in the flesh. I didn't see him walking around on it. I didn't see him before the crucifixion, but I did see him after. And seeing him after the crucifixion is a whole lot cooler than seeing him before the crucifixion.
That's good stuff.
Because I saw the resurrected one, okay? And so here, the word manner of life, okay, in verse 13. "For I have heard of my former manner of life,"
Yes.
means my conduct and behavior. No, they hadn't heard where he came from. They didn't know his hometown. None of that was important. But he said, "You heard how I conducted myself. You heard what I was up to. You heard my behavior." What was his behavior?
Heinous.
Says, "In the manner of life of Jesus, how I used to persecute the church of God beyond measure and tried to destroy it." You know my conduct and behavior. You know what I was up to. See, that's different than what it says here. It sounds like they got a bio on mine. They got his biography and read it. No. You knew what I was up to. And the word persecute means to put to flight and chase down. Put to flight and chase down. This is a hunting term. Hunting term. Let the dogs out. Let the dogs chase the lion. The lion runs and the dogs corner the lion. And I come up in my chariot and I pull back my bow and I have chased down the Christians. I sought them and I cornered them and to persecute means to hunt them down and to kill them. He puts that kind of a picture in their mind of how his behavior and his conduct was. Heinous, reprehensible, unforgivable. And verse 13 ends then. Used to persecute the church beyond measure. The word there means to an excess that can't really be described. Okay, there are many words for excess and beyond, and we've talked about them, that it's hupo and huperio and things like that, that mean hyper today and means more than you can imagine. This word that is used here means only in your imagination can you picture it. Okay, it's not like, how much grain can you give to the people? Why? Come out here and I'll show you. Come out here. Well, I don't have time to do it. Well, let me tell you, I've got 84 wagons I can fill with grain and I can bring it right in here. Hey, nobody has 84 wagons of grain. Well, I do. That's beyond excess. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But if I come to you and I say, I have more than you can even imagine. I will supply your country with enough grain that you will not run out. I won't run out. And there's more where that came from. I can't even imagine. I can't even picture that. You see, it's when you can't even wrap your head around it that this is. Okay? And so how mean was he? You can't even picture in your mind how out of control I was. I was so out of control. I was so, and he goes on and says, to persecute the church beyond measure and tried to destroy it. Today we might say to the max. Okay?
Yeah.
To destroy means to ravage. Again, it goes back to the hunt. The word destroy here is a hunting term of what happens if you just let the dogs have their way.
Oh, that's nasty.
If you say, kill. Not bay, not hold, not corner. But you get up there in your chariot and you look at them and you say, the dogs are hungry. It's been a good hunt. They deserve some fun too. They're foaming at the mouth. They're just losing control, and let's just let the dogs have some fun. Kill. That's the word used by Paul of describing the excessive anger, bitterness, and ravage that he felt towards the Christians. Do you understand how much we're learning about Paul in just a few short verses?
Indeed.
We are getting into the psyche of a man who was more than obsessed. He was possessed.
Oh. Amen. To that.
Possessed against the church. As the devil had tried to strike down Jesus and failed, Paul was the institute and the instrument of crucifixion of the church. Because if Satan couldn't kill Jesus, he could kill the believers, because not all of them are going to resurrect and rebuild the church. I will send Paul out as the mad dog that he is and go kill them all. And on his way to Damascus, a bright light knocked him off of his horse, and a voice from heaven said, it ain't going to happen this time either.
Amen. This time either.
It's not going to happen this time either, Satan. You lost, and you will lose again.
But I need to handle that further.
And you will lose again and again. And my word to you tonight is the same word from the Damascus road that said, you have lost, Satan, and you will not win, is the same message that Jesus speaks to us today. The same.
Exactly.
Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. And because he rose, I too will rise again. And so in this confession of Paul, we find the hope that the maddest dog that the devil can send after us ain't got nothing. The devil can charge him up, and God will still knock him off his saddle.
Yep.
So whatever's attacking you and bothering you, God is going to knock it out of your saddle. You have to but believe.
Right.
Amen?
Amen to that.
All right, we'll stop there. We'll stop on that particular verse.